Today, we're going to be talking about the Denis guilds. The guilds were the major economic and social engines of Denis society from day one. It was a system that was inherited from their Rhone ancestors, who had also had a king, but all of the economic and social institutions were guilds. Most evidence points to the maps done by the cartographers as being extremely comprehensive, often including ocean floors, underground water sources, geography, wind and ocean currents, and everything else that might be of importance to a person linking to that age. Because of the importance of their job, the cartographers were often part of the first wave of Denis explorers to enter a new age after it had been deemed safe by the Guild of Maintainers. The Explorer Guild of Cartographers was formed during the Live era, which was November 2003 to February 2004. The founder and first Grand Master was an explorer named Patrick the Photographer. The need for a guild became apparent when explorers were first roaming the New Ages being released by the DRC. After visiting one, explorers would return to the cavern and try to describe the locations and travel routes they'd seen, but were rarely able to make other explorers understand. The Guild of Greeters was not an original Denis guild. The Guild of Greeters, rather, was an explorer support group that was formed in 2003 by Ron Miners, who is the Mist community manager for Ubisoft. He created a set of guidelines for the group which were approved by Ubisoft and Cyan Worlds before he recruited an explorer named Chijara to lead it. The goal of the group was to provide new players with help by welcoming them to the cavern and answering any questions they had. Greeters were identified by a special t-shirt with the Helping Hands logo, and they wore that t-shirt on duty. You can see that logo, of course, scattered around the room where the marks were for the cartographers. The greeters stood regular shifts in the Guild of Greeters neighborhood and wandered around to other locations such as new neighborhoods where beginners might be found. Being a member of the Guild of Greeters neighborhood didn't make one a member of the guild. Instead, an application had to be submitted, after which the prospective greeter was tested for proficiency in a number of knowledge areas. After the 2007 closing of the cavern, most of the active greeters moved on to other hobbies or games, and the guild leadership lost interest in maintaining the guild or inducting new members. When the cavern reopened in 2010, the apathy remained. A few of the old members came back on their own and remained for various lengths of time, but the organization was never revived and new applicants didn't get replies if they asked to join. So while in theory the Guild of Greeters still exists, it's functionally dead because the leaders never passed on control of it to new members. Since 2010, several attempts were made to form explorer groups to fill the function of the greeters. All of them failed mainly because none of them would-be greeters were willing to stand regular shifts in the way the original guild members did, and so were rarely around when new explorers needed them. Inevitably, the members of those groups lost interest and stopped trying. These days, there are no active groups filling the greeting role in the cavern. The Maintainers were the second most important guild in Denis. They were the police for everything that dealt with writing of or the use of books. A book could not be used before it got approval from the maintainers, and no one considered a link safe until it received maintainer approval. When a new age was written, and after it had been reviewed by the masters of the Guild of Writers, it was turned over to the maintainers for inspection. The maintainers would read the book thoroughly to find any possible errors that might have been missed by the writers. If it passed that inspection, then preparations were made to use the linking panel for the first time. The first maintainer to use the book would be in special armor, which completely enclosed his body and was extremely heavy. This armor, as I mentioned earlier, was constructed of a special stone called Darathini. The armor contained a fail-safe method of automatically returning to Denis. During the time that the maintainer would be in the age was pre-selected, and during that time, sensors in the suit would gather data about the atmosphere, temperature, sunlight, and visible plants and animals around it. Welcome to the Messengers pub. The Messengers actually have one of the longer stories for any fan group. The Denis Guild of Messengers were one of the 18 major guilds that dominated Denis society throughout its history, and from whom the ruling councillor was elected after the abdication of King Kurith. In other words, the Guild of Messengers had one of the first of the great lords. They managed all the Empire's communications, both government and civilian. Because the Empire spanned hundreds of ages, the task was a huge responsibility and not easily accomplished. As far as I know, there was no method to send voice communications across the ages, and although our key devices can send text and image files, they didn't have key devices until very late in Denis history. Until just before the fall, as a matter of fact. That meant that letters, packages, voice and image recordings, and other means of communicating had to be hand-carried to their destinations by messenger guildsmen. The use of the word guildsman is deliberate, because as one of the 18 major guilds, the Guild of Messengers was barred to women. For the Fan Guild, when Uru Prologue began in 2003, the only Explorer Guild that was operating was the Guild of Greeters. They had official endorsement from Cyan Worlds and assisted new explorers who had questions or didn't know what to do. It was the Writers Guild that wrote all of the official ages for private enterprise, the government, and any other guild that required ages. In practice, members of influential families sometimes learned to write descriptive books without being members of the guild. An example of this was Atris the Elder, who wrote ages even though he was a member of the Guild of Surveyors, and he taught his future wife Anna how to write them. The Denis writers were strict and hidebound, having inherited centuries of rules and regulations from their own ancestors. After long experience, the art had been codified and writers were taught to follow the rules to the letter. This meant that the Denis had a wealth of previously gathered knowledge to work with, but experimentation was forbidden and creativity was almost stifled. Then we get to the fan writers. Cyan Worlds proposed the Explorer Guild of Writers as a group dedicated to the creation of fan ages. It proved to be one of the most successful of the Explorer Guilds and has continued to operate unbroken since its founding. The Guild of Writers was formed around February of 2004, which is about the time when the first run of Uru Live was shut down by Ubisoft. A group of fans began posting on the Clockwork Orange bulletin board server, which is known as COBS for short. Their aim was to figure out how to continue playing Uru online and how to add new content to the game. Unfortunately, in July of 2005, the COBS database crashed and was lost and unrecoverable, so most of this early part of the Guild's history is lost. Welcome everyone to the Watcher's Pub. This pub is located in an upper-class residential district of Agra Island called Jatari. It's located on the southeast side of the island. The second floor is an observation gallery with a corridor and that has a slanted shelf on one side and a door leading into a room for private meetings. In the Watcher's Pub here, that room was expanded and converted into a puzzle by Guildmaster Kadish. The third story of the building is made up of an inaccessible ring wall with windows. It's only decorative and has no roof, leaving the structure open to the air. There are 5 instances of the Watcher's Pub in Denis. All of the guild pubs that we just visited are instances of the Writer's Pub. Only this one existed during the time of the Denis. You can test yourself whether or not the other pubs are instances if you fully upgraded your key device. When you link to the here to the Watcher's Pub, your key will show your location as 1870 Toranti, 22 Shafiti, and minus 48 Shafiti. That places the pub in the surrounding section of the Jatari residential district at 105 degrees off the zero meridian, 293 feet from the Great Zero center mark, and 640 feet below the Great Zero. That elevation is higher than the Agra waterfront esplanade, which is 1,240 feet below the Great Zero. If you link to any of the guild pubs, your key will report your position as 000, which means it is not getting a signal from the Great Zero. The Watcher's Pub was built to be a social center for the Denis elite.